I guess I'm the last officer from the wardroom of HMCS Chippewa who served throughout the war and anyway at sea. In 1942, I had had 2 years experience with the Reserve Army, and I switched to the Navy, and the barracks for Chippewa then was at the corner of Sherbrooke and Ellis Avenue. And Chief Petty Officer John Pegg took myself and 2 others over to the old Winnipeg Winter Club on Smith Street, and we took that over and it became Chippewa. So they took me back on this Friday afternoon to Chippewa, and as I walked into the door, there was one man there in shirt sleeves. I didn't know who he was, but his was the Commander Ord, and he happened to be the captain of the ship at that particular time. And it was a very hot Friday afternoon, and he was in his shirt sleeve. So he said, "Well, what do you want to be?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'd like to shoot the gun." He said, "Well, we're not recruiting any gunners right now, and all we're recruiting is cooks, and I don't suppose you want to be one." And I said, "Oh, no, I did not." He said, "Well, he said, I think you have the education and qualification to become an officer. So if you'll put your name down to join the visual signalman, you will get an opportunity to meet the captains of the ships you're on, because you'll be working on the bridge with them, and there's a possibility you would get to be recommended for a lieutenant." And that's his word, and it worked out to be that. I had indicated I wanted to be a signalman, so they drafted a bunch of us down to St. Hyacinthe, Quebec, where they had a signal training school. And I finished it there as a signalman and was then drafted to Halifax. In Halifax, I served on several ships in the North Sea, North Atlantic Sea. We used to make trips across the North Atlantic as in the convoy escort, and we would end up in Londonderry, Ireland, and it used to take us 17, 18 days to wind in zigzag fashion across the Atlantic to avoid submarines that were out there waiting for us. I'm very proud of the Canadian Navy and its research. There's many things that possibly were responsible for winning the war. The Air Force, the Army, and the Navy. But, you know, getting those convoys across the North Atlantic was a mighty task, at great risk. We lost many ships, And one of the things that I must remind people, they didn't think that the war ever reached Canadian shores. That's not true, because the German submarines came into the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and a very good friend of mine, Pierre Saint-Marie, Pierre Simard, was a boy in 1942, graduated from school and joined the Merchant Marine. And he sailed out of the Ile Saint-Méar, which is a French island in our government, Gulf of St. Lawrence. So he joined, and they were sailing out of there one morning, and the German submarine sunk the ship he was on. They were rescued and taken back to St. Simon, and he rejoined another iron ore ship that sailed out of there that very night and was sunk. Again, he was rescued, and in this time he figured he would join the Canadian Navy and fight those submarines that were invading Canadian waters. But those submarines had sunk more than 80 ships in the St. Lawrence. Don't tell Pierre Simard that they didn't. There was no danger in Canadian waters because he was there and did it. Twice in one day. I came home, and the little girl that I had said goodbye to on the CN platform in Winnipeg back in 1942 was waiting on the platform with my mom and dad, and we were soon married. She was a lovely gal, beautiful. I stayed with the reserve for several years afterwards, and my son, David, the eldest, became a sea cadet and eventually ended up as executive officer for Chippewa. Chippewa was at one time one of the largest sea cadet headquarters in the British Empire, and tens of thousands of sea cadets, Navy cadets got to spend some time at sea and learn how to handle themselves when the going got tough. And indeed, when the storms ravage the North Sea and the Atlantic, it's tough. Well, I used to enjoy going down to Chippewa and walking in, but now it's long gone. But I'm still treated with utmost respect. Thank you.